Well, it's 6 o'clock. We're going to call this meeting to order.
Hang on.
No, I'll start the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
I got almost 6 o'clock on my computer. Thank you, everyone, for coming. My name is Lynn Watashik. I'm the Planning and Zoning Administrator. We're going to call the meeting to order for the Planning Commission meeting this evening. We don't have a chair or a vice chair to begin the meeting, so I will start out by taking taking roll. Mitch, will you start, please?
Yep, Mitch Kleins, Sherburne County Planning and Zoning.
Mark Schneider, Sherburne County Planning and Zoning.
Jeff Papenfuss, San Diego Township.
Francine Larson, Blue Hill Township.
Terrence Van Dyke, Clear Lake Township.
Mark Hedstrom, Big Lake Township.
Steve DeMules, Palmer Township.
Kathy Sims, Kosowski Haven Township.
Butch Hass, Livonia Township.
Gary Gray, Sherburne County Commissioner, District 4.
Dawn.
Dawn Ives, Sherburne County Attorney's Office. Carrie Winter, Planning and Zoning.
And so because we don't have a chair or a vice chair, we're going to elect a chair pro tem to begin the meeting. And then the 2025 Planning Commission chair would be elected. Who would like to make the motion for the chair pro tem to help begin the meeting?
I would make a motion, I would do it.
Okay.
I'll second.
That motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So then I will turn the meeting over to you. Thank you, Steve.
All right. So, the meeting is being recorded both audio and visual, and that the Planning Commission is a recommending body. We would recommend to the county board, and that would be heard on February 4th of 2025, and that would be 9 a.m. And all comments made tonight will be forwarded to the county board. Is there any changes to the meeting minutes of last month?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
as following members are present, they mentioned Mr. Adams of Big Lake Township. I believe he's from Orog.
Okay.
Is that in the minutes?
That's in the minutes.
That
yeah.
needs to be corrected. Okay, we'll make that change.
Any other changes? If none, I'll take a motion to approve.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. The agenda tonight, are there any changes to the agenda?
There are not.
I'll take a motion for approving that agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passed. All right. Agenda item number 1, election of officers. Need a motion for a Planning Commission Board Chair. I would make a motion to have Ike as chairperson.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Now we need a co-chair.
I think it goes over to Ike now, and he can
Okay.
take care of that.
It's all yours.
Okay. Well, we need a co-chair.
I
guess.
would like to nominate Bruce Abel in Big Lake Township.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, then agenda item number 1. Agenda item number 2, Knife River
Mr. Chair?
Corporation.
I believe we need to have a call to have Carrie Winter appointed Planning Commission Secretary
Oh,
again,
okay.
please.
All right. I'm new at this.
Yep.
Yeah, minutes old.
Looking for a recommendation for Planning Commission Secretary.
I would nominate Carrie Winter.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now we proceed. All right, good. I'm counting on you, Lynn.
You bet.
Item number 3, Knife River Corporation.
Oh, is that on there?
Yep.
Okay.
Item number 2 should be setting the meeting schedule for 2025.
Oh, yeah. Okay, then a motion to meet on the 3rd Thursday of each month with the exception of June, as this is the Juneteenth holiday. This meeting will be held on the 4th Thursday in June. Is there a motion to approve that?
I would make a motion to accept.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now we'll get to Knife River. Knife River North Central applicant is proposing to amend the existing IUP condition number 26. No dewatering or wash plant will be allowed on this IUP, and to allow a wash plant on site. The applicant is also proposing to add a scale and a scale shack. The location of the pit is PID 25-00015-2000, Section 15, Township 35, Range 30 West, in Haven Township. See, we go for the applicant right away?
Nope.
Is
I'll
the-
present it.
Okay, Mitch?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks for presenting it. So yes, Knife River, applicant and owner of the property, is requesting to amend a 2022 interim use permit that they have been operating under for the last 2 years. Was brought in front of Haven Township. Haven Township did provide their 5 comments on the packet. David Rodell, our Assistant Public Works Director, reviewed comments from Knife River of any additional traffic. Knife River responded that there would be no additional traffic for the wash plant or scale house, so that his original comments from November 7th of 2022, no revision to them, so those will remain. No comments from the St. Cloud Regional Airport or the DNR. Again, it's Knife River's Higgins Pit. It's 2022 interim use. It's a 90.62 acre mine operation from a 155 acre site. As you mentioned, condition 26 was that they could not do a wash plant or dewatering. They are just requesting to amend condition number 26 to allow a wash plant. The wash plant wasn't initially proposed in the original mine, so that's a condition that we throw on the permit. In order for them to get a wash plant, they have to do what they're doing right now, and that's to request to amend their IUP. Again, the shack is proposed to be about 187 square feet, so that does not require a building permit as it's less than 200. And the location of it is about 300 feet from the center line of the road. Required setbacks 100 feet, so they're meeting that setback. A lot of conditions had to be done initially. Residents and buildings had to be removed, which have been completed, and berms have been installed. They were proposing to take the scale and scale house from their Stark pit, which is just northeast of this. In discussions with Knife River, they don't know if that's going to be feasible once they take it apart. I'll have the applicant go into more detail with that. But other than that, we have 38 conditions, and the applicant is in the audience for any further questions.
Mitch, can you please explain to me the recommended conditions if approved, item number 4? I got a feeling I don't like it.
So when they get to phase 2 and 3, they have to monitor the wetlands, and if they provide data showing that they're impacting it at all, they will have to work with our wetland specialist TEP panel to work on any mitigation for that.
So that mitigation may mean that there'd be wetlands in other areas and not necessarily that area.
I don't know the specifics of the requirement. Mark can probably go into more detail, or Lynn, they are more wetland.
So my suspicion is when this interim use permit was processed, originally, the Sherburne County Wetland or Technical Advisory Committee reviewed this request for wetland mitigation or any kind of impacts. And this condition probably came out of that. And so replacement, so if there was an impact to the wetland, it would have to be mitigated offsite. They typically would be required to buy credits for something like that at a 2-to-1 or 4-to-1 rate.
Right, and I understand all the credit thing, but the credits could be bought in Ely, Minnesota, and not have any effect on what is happening here.
The wetland credits go to certain, so they're,
I can speak to that.
yeah, thanks. I'm
The wetland credits, they do sequencing, and we want to see wetlands replaced in our area, in our vicinity, so that we are maximizing what's going to help us in our area. For example, years ago, when the St. Cloud Airport was proposing an expansion and they were impacting wetlands, they had to do wetland credits up in Benton County because of the way the flowage was. We were trying to make sure that we weren't filling wetlands in Sherburne County and compounding the issue. So they did wetland replacement credits up in Benton, which helps to mitigate specifically for our area. There's different banking areas, and there's very specific Wetland Conservation Act regulations that have to be followed that are state regulations, and so we follow those.
Okay, and of course, I think everybody here knows what my reasoning is. Because of the watershed, we get a lot of fluctuation in water on the bottom of the watershed, and I don't like to see any of the wetlands taken away.
Yeah.
If it's gonna be mitigated with something that is in the watershed, I have no problem with it.
And we will actually incorporate conditions regarding wetlands from the TEP panel's recommendations, so.
And the TEP panel is the technical evaluation panel that we're required to have, and it includes the DNR is on it, the Army Corps of Engineers is on it, zoning has someone on it, Soil and Water Conservation District has someone on it, and someone from the Board of Water and Soil Resources. So those people are specialists in wetlands, and they very specifically review the proposal and make sure that it meets all the state requirements.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, I have a question for staff. Number 8, the hours of operation. They seem to differ from the attachment in packet B2.
Yes, so the packet attachment B, that was the original request that was submitted. From that, the conditions did change from Planning Commission. I just wanted to include the original proposal that was submitted. Unfortunately, yeah, there were some discrepancies, but that, from the Planning Commission, 6 a.m. was not allowed, 7 a.m. is the start. So in the conditions, it will be 7 a.m.
Thank you.
Any other questions of staff? Is the applicant present? If you could please take the podium, state your name and address, please.
Hi, my name is John Henry. I'm the general manager for Knife River, Central Minnesota. Address is, you want Knife River's address or mine? 4787 Shadowwood Drive, Northeast, Sauk Rapids.
That'll work. Are there any questions from for the applicant? I have a couple.
Sure.
Regarding the wash plant, what exactly is going to be the source of water? I understand you have to get a water appropriations permit from the DNR.
Correct.
Is it going to be groundwater or?
It'll be groundwater. We have, there's really no need to drill a well there. where, you know, within the surface water. The restoration plan was to have open water, so it'd be pulled from groundwater.
Okay. Second question, assuming a 30-foot wide wash plant and 10-foot depth, you come up with about a 1.5 to 1 horizontal to vertical side slope. If in a saturated condition, is that slope stable?
Yeah, normally what we would do is dig that out within a foot or two of the groundwater. And yeah, we have ponds, we have wash ponds like that all over the state of Minnesota. Of course, there's, you know, you need to be a skilled operator to know how to handle that and how to maneuver it, but yes, I mean, we,
The slopes remain stable at, there's
yeah,
no,
yeah.
okay. And then the last question I have, I'm assuming the Stark pit is nearly out of product.
Correct.
And will that, once the Stark pit is closed, will that increase the traffic load to the Higgins pit?
Well, you know, we were asked this at the township level, and you're always, as far as the sales, of course, is gonna make the truck traffic fluctuate. This year in Higgins Pit, we actually had quite a few sales, large volume, internal and external, meaning 60,000 ton. And the reason the answer was given that it's not gonna increase the traffic is because we don't foresee that happening every year with a 50,000 ton, 60,000 ton sale. You might replace it with the 1 or 2 load retails or a 5,000 ton sale. But, you know, it is very hard to tell what the economy does, what jobs you get, but our estimation is it's not gonna move much from this year.
I see. But you are aware that if the traffic volume does increase, the need for turn lanes and bypass lanes are there, and the county is going to require that.
Yeah, if that's the case, yes.
Question for Mr.
I have one.
Okay.
I just have a follow-up for you. I was at the Haven Township meeting when you discussed this, and one of the Haven Townships, number 4, is that you were going to remove the scale, and now it says you're not removing the scale house
From,
from the Stark pit?
yeah, it'll get removed, we just don't know what condition it's in, so we don't know if we can use it.
You don't know if it's viable.
Yes. So the only difference on the Higgins on this permit is that there's a good possibility we'll have to buy one. We'll have to buy a scale and a scale shack.
Is that going to shift the end date for the Stark pit then?
No.
Because you had assured the Haven Township, when they gave you a positive comment, that it would be ended by 2025.
The restoration will be done in 2025, or at least that's our goal. Right now, no more mining will take place. And I think what I told the township was that we are done mining. There's no more mining activity can happen. We're finishing up as far as the lease. The last set was in November, I believe, was the last time we took equipment out of there.
So then what about the stockpiling that's there?
Stockpiles will be moved throughout the year. All of those piles should be done by the end of the year.
Okay, because that was one of the reasons that Haven Township gave you a positive, is that it would be closed and completed.
Yeah. As far as the restoration, I don't know if we'll get it done this fall. I would say most of it should be done by the end of '25. But there's going to be no mining for sure. It's done.
Okay.
A couple questions for you. First of all, in your primary data I got dated November 5, 2024, says it here that your makeup volume will be 500 gallons a minute. So that is not from a well. That's from groundwater seeping in when you pump it out. Is that what you're figuring, 500 gallons a minute?
Yeah, and there's on one of the, there's an attachment with a picture of the ponds, and it does show exactly how the ponds work, the makeup water. When you pull out of the water table like that and you're using it for washing, number one, the only thing you really lose is evaporation. There's a lot of variables, but basically you lose about 15% of the water you pump. It's very little that you lose. It's all through evaporation. So you could use, even if you used 5,000 gallons a minute, the water goes back into the pond.
And then also it says here that the processing plant would run 6 weeks per year approximately. Is that true?
Correct.
And so what happens if you have to run 7 or 8 weeks per year? Come back for another permit, or how does that work?
Well, I mean, I would, if you wanted to, and it was, makes no difference to the public and to the board, to not come back, sure, I would want longer. I would want more weeks. I went as long as I thought I possibly would wash in there. I mean,
Well, if it says 6 weeks, and
Yeah.
that's what we approve, it will be, the board approves, then it would be 6 weeks.
yeah,
7
that's,
weeks, not
that's
8
fine.
weeks. 6
So yeah,
weeks.
if it's 6 weeks and that's what's
Well, that's what
approved,
your proposal is,
correct,
and that's what you assured the board, town board.
yes.
Any other questions? I have a question for Public Works. How do we monitor traffic volumes?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm David Rodell, Deputy County Engineer at Sherburne County. The 28 trips a day that are currently identified there is well in advance of any threshold for like a right turn lane, which is typically 100 trips for a car. We'd have to monitor that if we were starting approaching that. But we have people construction staff that are out in the field in those areas of town, so we would periodically check and see. Obviously, the public does a fantastic job if traffic starts to get larger than what people feel is comfortable when they're driving there. Obviously, during construction season, and 28 ADT or vehicles a day is 3-ish an hour, not many. And so I think anything that would be in excess that would create a safety problem would be identified pretty quickly.
Thank you. There are no other questions. At this time, we'll open up the public hearing. Is there any, sir?
Actually, I do have a question. That's an average, correct?
That's the average that was presented.
Yeah, that's the average for the year.
I see. Okay.
That's all I had.
Is there anyone here to speak on this issue?
Mr. Chair,
Sir?
could I please make a suggestion that we put a 3-minute time limit on all comments?
Good suggestion. We will put a 3-minute limit on all comments. Is there anyone here to speak on this issue?
Good evening. I'm Eric Meyer from Haven Township Board. I did hear some discussion that the Stark Pit would not be closed by 2025 full reclamation. That was not our understanding at the board, so I'd like to make sure the committee understands that. We expect the Stark Pit to be closed at the end of 2025, back to the way it was before they started. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? If not, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing, please.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I do
What are
have
the wishes of the board?
I have a question. So Butch and I were looking at the Knife River interim use amendment proposal that says 6 weeks. I'm trying to figure out where it is under the recommendations.
We didn't put it as a recommendation. That's what they had a proposal. We're just allowing them to use it as the duration of the mining season.
So
You can,
it,
you can add it as a condition,
so it's
but,
5 days a week, 10 hours per day, as long as they want.
well, per the mining season, we're allowing them to run in conjunction with the crushing and mining, crushing, and washing would be the same hours of operation for the duration of the mining season.
But I believe if the board wants to put additional restrictions on for a 6-week time period, that is up to the planning commission to recommend to the county board.
And I'm not opposed to doing 8 weeks.
Well, that was what the discussion was at the town board level,
Well, then we'll have to
6 weeks.
make it part of this if you want to.
I do. So I'd like you to take, it's paragraph 3, second sentence of that paragraph 3 on the Knife River. It says, the processing plant would run 6 weeks, mid-April through mid-November, 5 days per week, 10 hours per day. I'd like to add that in.
Yep.
Do I need a second or something? Do I need a second?
I don't believe so. Do we need a second on that?
Probably best practice, isn't it?
Yep, that's what she said.
Robert's Rules of Order?
Yep.
Okay.
I guess I come from a construction background a little bit, and I don't disagree with her at all. However, I think Mr. Henry's going to ask, and I could see where he would ask that these 6 weeks wouldn't have to run consecutively. He could move in for, if he wants to move in for 3 weeks and move out and move in, or if he wants, I mean, I think we should, I would be willing to allow him that discretion to,
Yeah, and that's really what it says, Butch. It says processing 6 weeks.
but just to
It doesn't
clarify,
say
I
when.
just want to clarify that.
Yeah, it doesn't say when. So I'll need a second. I'm gonna get one.
I'll second that motion or addition.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, could we also make sure that the applicant understands all 30, whatever the number was, please, just to make sure they understand what the conditions are clearly?
Understood, yep. And sir, do you understand the 38 conditions?
39.
39, beg your pardon?
Yes.
So I got a question for the county staff. Are we in any danger of, with this pumping this groundwater, are we in any danger of putting any stress or anything on the local wells, the irrigation wells, or we got a well in my house, and now that groundwater comes from same aquifer, and now I've got to go deeper into my well. Is there, maybe Mr. Henry could answer that question. It's a question I've got.
That's why we do a DNR water appropriations permit, is they evaluate the draw on local wells, and compared to an irrigation system, this is minute because it's not being sucked up by the plants, of course, from the crops. I assume, I'm not a hydrologist, I assume when you apply to get a permit from the DNR, will not affect the water table or affect the local wells.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I do believe that there was a motion to amend the condition from the member from Haven Township. I believe there was a second. Perhaps we should just clarify what that motion is and then have the commission act.
Yeah, that would be for my benefit too. I
Motion.
didn't hear what was the,
So my motion was to add number 39, the processing plant would run 6 weeks, mid-April through mid-November, 5 days per week, 10 hours per day. Butch also discussed the fact that it would not need to be contiguous, that it could actually be split up. That was the motion, that was the second.
you said it would not be contiguous, or it
Not
would?
need to be
I
contiguous.
see, I see.
But it could be, but limited to 6.
Okay. Is there, well, we have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
And you're aware of the 39 conditions.
I am, I'm just, as far as the washing goes, the 10 hours a day, is that equal to the crushing? It would just make it a lot less confusing and for me to hold my people accountable to run the hours the same as the crushing, the same conditions.
What was the understanding of the town board?
That sentence that I just read is the understanding that was given to the town board. So it might be confusing, but
7 a.m. to 6 p.m.
7 to 6, yes.
Yeah, that's what's in the conditions.
So that's 11 hours.
it's
I mean, for one, the wash plant is no dust and it's much less noisy than a crusher. I don't know why we couldn't run both at the same time or the same hours.
That would make sense to myself as well.
Yeah, you know, they basically, they go hand in hand with the crushing
Correct.
operation, so,
I see no issue with that.
yeah, that would be my understanding anyhow.
What's that?
I would understand, my understanding would be coincident with the crushing operation.
Yeah, it gets very confusing to try to, if I get new operators in there all the time to say,
Understood.
you can run these hours, you can run these hours, and that's where violations happen, and I don't want that to happen.
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
So with that being said, Chair, would we have to change that from 11 hours per day,
11 hours per day. Yeah.
6 weeks, and so they could run continuous with the crushing thread? And just because we could say there, you know, it takes time for them to start up, takes time for it to shut down, run the belts off, so that 11 hours is actually only 10 and a quarter, 10 and a half anyway, so.
Correct.
I mean, to me, it makes sense from my background.
it just gets a little difficult when it's spoken to in one way at our board level, and then all of a sudden we get a shift. So
I guess I don't remember saying 10 hours a day. I'd love to see the minutes from the meeting.
all I'm saying is that if there's a shift, it's very similar to closing down the Stark pit. If there's a shift and we give you a positive comment, that town board gives you a positive comment, it's based on discussion. That's all, John Henry. So
Yeah, I just don't recall saying,
positive comments are based on that.
yeah, and I just don't recall it being 10 hours.
I do.
What are the wishes of the board? I'll make a motion to approve the IUP amendment based on the 39 conditions.
I'll second that.
Do you want to make that amendment to the 11 hours then?
They run,
Concurrent to make it match the other one?
Yeah, right,
they
yeah.
run
Then
concurrently.
you're gonna have to have a motion.
We had a motion, we already did that one.
Do you want to, we have to amend that then?
We have to amend that motion to make it coincident with the crushing operation.
I'll make that motion.
And I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I need a second for the approval of the IUP.
Which second?
All in favor?
Need the findings.
We got findings.
The board
Oh,
has to,
findings, okay, I gotta read the findings. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
We will do the findings.
You ready?
I'm ready.
That the interim use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted, nor substantially diminish and impair property values within the immediate vicinity.
Yes, conditions of the approval and operational plans are in place to mitigate the injurious impacts on Property is in the immediate vicinity of the mining operation. This mining operation has been in operation for 2 years, and no complaints related to the mine have been filed with the Planning and Zoning Office.
Number two, that the establishment of the interim use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding vacant property for uses predominant in the area.
Response is yes, the proposed IUP will take the land out of agricultural use for the duration of the mining operation. Once mining has been completed, the property will be reclaimed to open water and grasslands.
Number three, that adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and other necessary facilities have been or are being provided.
Response is yes, adequate roads and stormwater infrastructure are in place for mining operations. The applicant has worked with Sherburne County Public Works for access off of CASA 7.
Number four, that adequate measures have been or will be taken to provide sufficient off-street parking and loading space to serve the proposed use.
Yes, the property is proven to be large enough to accommodate the mining equipment and employee vehicles while the mine is in operation. Access to the mine is from CASA 3 and 7, and there is adequate off-street parking for trucks entering the property.
And number five, that adequate measures have been or will be taken to prevent or control offensive odor, fumes, dust, noise, and vibration, so that none of these will constitute a nuisance, and to control lighted signs and other lights in such a manner that no disturbance to neighboring properties will result.
The response is yes. The conditions of the IUP, hours of operation, dust mitigation, and noise reduction plans, along with state standards for air emission and noise standards, have been demonstrated to be adequate measures that are taken to minimize the disturbance to the neighboring properties. Berms have been constructed that have reduced the noise for surrounding neighbors.
Thank you.
Okay, findings of fact, again, motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye. Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 4. McCoy and Nicole Cox request interim use permit for a home business in an accessory building HVAC business. Property address is 13789 57th Street Southeast, Clear Lake, Santiago Township. Legal description is listed, section 31. Mark.
I can take it from there. Thank you. San Diego Town Board did give a unanimous recommendation to approve this IEP. The applicant is proposing to operate his small HVAC Apex Mechanical from his accessory building on his property. He intends to use roughly 1,200 square feet of his property of a 40 by 80 foot accessory building to be constructed for his sheet metal forming, ductwork, and warehouse and staging materials for his HVAC business. The business, McCoy Cox, has operated for 22 years in this trade, and he's looking to bring the business, home, potentially temporary, 2 to 3 years. He has he's not proposing to have any employees work at the location, just occasionally stop by and pick up material a few times a week. According to the applicant's business description, no business vehicles or equipment will be stored outdoors. Any business waste, scrap metal, packing materials will be hauled away for scrap or disposed in an on-site dumpster. Customers are not anticipated to come to the property, and deliveries will be minimal. The applicant did provide a floor plan for his proposed business showing a 30 by 40 foot shop and an 8 by 8 office. The remaining building will be for personal use. With this interim use permit for home business and accessory building, staff is recommending 8 conditions of approval.
Are there any questions of staff for this item?
Okay.
No?
Have the applicant.
Will the applicant?
Give your name and address.
State.
McCoy Cox, 13789 57th Street, Clear Lake.
You understand the 6 recommended conditions?
Yes.
Are there any
I have
questions?
a question. Is that a handbrake you're using to bend, or is that a mechanical?
Hand. Everything will be fully hand. I'm not looking to do any large-scale
The
fabrication.
noise is at a minimum.
You won't even hear it, yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, just to clarify, there's 8 recommended conditions.
Next page. Oh, thank you. Any other questions?
Just a clarification, in your application, it said that you will be hauling away scrap, and it says under, oh, let's see here, which one is it? No exterior storage of business materials is permitted. That would include scrap, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Staff? Okay. At this point, we'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak on this issue? Anyone here to speak on the issue? Apparently not. Have a motion.
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, at this point, what are the wishes of the board?
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion to approve with the 8 recommended conditions.
I'll second that.
Okay, at this time, we'll have the findings of fact.
Great. Staff has provided some recommendations. Here are the findings of fact. Number 1, that the interim use permit will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of the property in the immediate vicinity for purposes already permitted, nor substantially diminish or impair property values within the immediate vicinity.
Yes, the proposed use is not anticipated to diminish and impair values within the immediate area. All activities will take place within the accessory structure, and the proposed conditions of approval should assist in minimizing impact to neighboring properties.
Okay. That the establishment of the interim use permit will not impede normal and orderly development, improvements of surrounding vacant properties for uses predominant in the area.
Yes, the permitting of this IUP will not impede development. The proposed building can be used for personal use once the business ceases operation, and the property will continue to be used as a residential property.
Okay. Number 3, that adequate utilities, access road, drainage, other necessary facilities have and are being provided for.
Yes, the applicant is not requesting additional utilities beyond what a normal residence would require.
Okay. Number 4, that adequate measures have and or will be taken to provide sufficient off-street parking, loading space to serve the proposed use.
Yes, the applicant has enough parking space to accommodate the proposed use.
Lastly, that adequate measures have been or will be taken to prevent or control offensive odors, fumes, dust, noise, and vibration, so none of these will constitute a nuisance, and to control lighted signs and other lights in such a manner that no disturbance to neighboring properties will result.
Yes, this business is not anticipated to cause offensive odor, fumes, dust, noise, and vibrations to the immediate area. All activities will be conducted in the accessory building.
Thank you.
Okay, we've had a motion and a second and read the findings of fact. What is the wishes of the board? Oh, yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
You'll get your sea legs. You'll get there. Robert's Rules of Order.
It's been approved. This will be recommended to the county board on the 4th of February, and it's probably a good idea to be here at that time, so thanks for being here now.
Thank you.
I'm supposed to be talking. Okay, agenda item number What is this now? Number 5.
Aye.
Holcomb MRW Inc. Review final scoping document. And who's got this one?
I will start this one out.
Okay, thank you.
And so I'd like to go to the presentation that was put together for this and briefly give you some background information on it. Planning Commission received the proposed scoping EAW EIS back in November. And I'd like to start out by stating, Mark, can you go to the next slide, please? That the purpose of this portion of the meeting is to review the final scoping decision document. This process does not involve any approval for the proposed gravel mine operation, but it determines what environmental issues need to be evaluated to aid in future review of the proposed mining project. An EIS takes a great deal of time. We don't anticipate that this will be done, the environmental portion of it, until late 2025, and then they can apply, and we go through the process at that time for approving or denying the interim use permit for a gravel mining operation. What we're trying to do now is determine what issues really need to be looked at in depth to make sure that all concerns and issues are reviewed, analyzed, and that we have good information in order to make future decisions. Next slide, please. And so just to give you a couple of terms that you may hear, EQB means Environmental Quality Board. An EIS is an environmental impact statement. Not very often are those done, but that is what is required under state rules for this proposal. An EAW is an environmental assessment worksheet. That's a lower degree of environmental review, and we're doing a scoping document to help us get to the environmental impact statement. And Sherburne County is the responsible governmental unit for this proposal. Next slide, please. Up on the screen in front, you can see that the project proposer is Wholesome MWR Inc. It's an EIS. The study area are 12 parcels that encompass 683 acres, of which the company owns 536, and 137 acres are what they are saying that they lease. This is a mandatory environmental impact statement based on the size of the project, and those rules are established at the state level. Because of it, we have to do an environmental impact statement for mining. And it's located between US Highway 10 and County Road 8, and it's on both the north side and the south side of County Road 65. That road runs east-west through the project area. This is an aerial view of it. They're proposing to mine in 5 different phases. They have stated that they're not proposing any permanent structures. Phase 1 of the mine, where they're gonna mine and reclaim and establishing their processing and their stockpile area for the future different phases that they're gonna work on, and that's proposed on the north side of 65. Mining operations are proposed to be both above and below the water table, and phase 5 is in the far southwestern corner, and that's where you currently have several smaller solar farms. And those solar farms were approved, I don't remember how many years ago, but they were approved for 20 to 25 years, so they won't be getting to that southwestern portion theoretically for some time, if it gets approved. So they're proposing 24-hour operation. There are wetlands that it appears that may be impacted, so they'll have to go through the Wetland Conservation Act rules and regulations and propose those impacts. The depth of the mine will be up to 25 feet below the water table, according to their proposal. The berm that they're proposing is between 8 and 15 feet in height, depending on the area. They are proposing nighttime lighting. Their average trip per day is between 180 and 350, depending on the time of year. During the third quarter of the year, between July and September, they believe that the average trips per day would be between 242 and 478. They anticipate that the mine will take 20 to 25 years, depending on market demand, and they are proposing 3 different open water ponds that you can see both on the far south kind of in the middle on the north side of 65 and up in the far northern portion of the properties. Next slide, please. So again, the purpose of an EIS, which is the stage that we are at now, it's a planning tool. It helps give us the information that we need. It identifies the potentially significant environmental impacts that we need to address and study. It would identify how we could avoid or mitigate certain impacts to the best of our ability, and it would suggest those mitigation measures potentially. It would inform the boards that look at this for future permitting, for planning, and for zoning decisions. But the process we're in right now does not approve or deny a project. We are not at that stage. Next slide, please. Here is a timeline of the events. They had a scoping EAW that was out for public review and comments. That was between November 29th and December 26th of 2024. That was when people had the ability to provide us with written comments, and all of those were incorporated into a document. Then December 17th, we had a public meeting at the Sherburne County History Center in Becker. We sent out, I believe, 158 notices, anyone within a half a mile of the proposed project. We had between 60 and 70 residents show up to that meeting. We were happy to have that type of attendance. It's before the Planning Commission tonight. Then it'll go to the county board in February, and the county would issue a scoping decision based on all the information that we've received. We have worked with our consultant, and we've put together a final scoping decision document that was on the back table there for people to be able to take. Based on all the comments that we received, what are the issues that we need to look at? The applicant will be gathering all of that information and providing it to the county. And there's deadlines that we need to meet on this. In September is when we anticipate that we'll be holding another informational meeting, much like what we did in Becker previously, asking the residents for comments on the additional information that we have. And then that EIS would get published. Again, they would ask for comments. And we anticipate, this schedule could change, but we anticipate that in December is when all those decisions would be completed. Next slide, please. We had A to D for the evaluation scale that was put together. A was considered more of a minor topic, and the issue would not be addressed further in the draft EIS. The B was a minor topic, and the information that was already in the EAW will be used in the EIS. C was considered more of a significant topic. Scoping data was adequate, but there may be additional minor updates in the EIS. And D was a significant topic and would be further evaluated in the EIS. Next, please. And so you can see those were what were in the original draft, and those did not change. We did receive some comments, and we did have some discussion specifically on land use, which is on the first column, the last item. There were some people that felt that land use should go from a C to a D. As of this point, that has not been changed. The Planning Commission could recommend to the county board that that go to a D if it's determined that that needs to be done. The next group, please, Mark. We did change the air due to the comments that we received from residents and the township from a C to a D to make it as significant with additional information. We didn't change the verbiage under there. I missed that. But the verbiage that's supposed to be for D would be underneath there. And we did change that one based on the comments that we received. Next slide, please. And so we're here to discuss the scoping EIS tonight.
Thank you. Are there any other questions of staff?
So when I look at the table 4.1, the final scoping decision item summary, when I just look at it, I look at 13, and apparently we feel that the EAW will answer any and all questions, that this is not an issue more than contamination and hazardous materials.
We didn't receive a lot of feedback that that one was a concern, other than what was stated in the document. Again, the planning commission or the county board could change that if they deemed that necessary.
Because it's my understanding that like an EAW, I mean, we do that for most every pit, right?
Right.
And since this one is of significant size, more than what we've been used to, I would think that there's a possibility that that EAW might not be adequate enough.
And the board could certainly make that recommendation.
I would agree with that.
Okay.
How do we implement that recommendation?
As we ask for public comment tonight, then when we're completed with that process, if there's any changes that the board wants to make to what's recommended here, they could make those changes and take that change. We'd take that to the county board for consideration.
I see. So we proceed with a public hearing at this time?
Sure.
Okay, at this time, we'll open a public hearing. Those respondents would go to the podium and list your name and address. And again, keep your comments to less than 3 minutes.
I will. Good evening. My name is Jim Roberts, and I actually have two affected properties, 5280 15th Avenue Southeast and 4445 County Road 8 Southeast. And the first question I have is on the contamination in the hazardous materials and wastes, and that was given an A, and that really needs to be looked at very closely. One of the items that they're proposing is asphalt recycling, and in looking at the studies, numerous studies, one of the most profound studies is a study done by Columbia University, and the groundwater contamination along those areas where they've done that have heavy metals, and it's consistent. And I have a copy of this study in my possession right here, if somebody would like to see it. And the second thing is the nature of this company. And this company has been fined over $1 billion for whatever violations, environmental, safety, all of the above. And my recommendation would be, if this county is going to consider this, if they're going to engage this company, Wholesome or their subdivisions, deal with it with extraordinary, extreme, diligent caution. Every load needs to be supervised. And the other venues that have done this and allowed this company permits or whatever, the history has been, when they're not watched, bad things happen. So if this is going to happen, it needs to be with extraordinary, diligent supervision. And this is a massive, massive project. And I feel bad for the people on County Road 8, or County Road 65, and me too. We have a property right on County Road 8. The traffic, the people on County Road 65, there's going to be between 150 and 400 semis going past their property every single day. I don't know how, in a reasonable person's mind, that would not decrease property values or affect their use and enjoyment of their property. And I had a conversation with one of the people up in, and I know this is not a final decision, but I had a conversation with one of the representatives at the St. Cloud meeting in downtown St. Cloud, and I asked, well, why don't you, go to a non-populated area? There's hundreds of areas, northern Benton County, Morrison County, Todd County, rich with aggregates. And the response was, well, this is close and this is convenient. And a consideration probably should be, well, why should the Sherburne County residents shoulder the fuel costs for this company? And I can't imagine the disruption to the local populace. 3 minutes are up?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, thank you so much for listening to me. I sure appreciate it.
We'll track time, and we do, kind of like with our county board, we do have a sign that kind of gives them an indication of their timing. So we'll track the time and let the public know.
Good evening. My name is James O'Donnell. I live at 5240 15th Avenue Southeast. And my comments are on more of the water resources, section 5.2, items 1 and 2 and 3. And on the water appropriations, they're identifying somewhere around 300 to 600 GPM that they need for their wash plant for makeup on an average basis. They do not take into consideration the amount of water that's going to be consumed by the displacement of the sands. I reference a project that was done in Scott County in 2014 for Jordan Aggregate, where Bar Engineering identified through the evaporation and the displacement of, if they're taking 1 million tons a year, which is the max, 500's their average, this could have an impact of 400 to 800 GPM additional water that they are ignoring in their study. For the water quality on the residential water supplies, the state of Minnesota came through with an excellent study with the Minnesota Department of Health for what they call the St. Cloud Water District shed, where they identify this particular area where they're going to penetrate into the aquifer as being highly sensitive and very dangerous. And they also identify that there's 200 wells, including mine, that draw off that same aquifer that they're going to be battling with. So those are the things I want to identify.
Thank you.
I'm Lisa Hooper. I reside at 4363 31st Avenue Southeast. I'm against this. I look at I'm out there as a homesteader. I have a garden. I have chickens. You're going to have lighting. You're going to have noise all night. So now I'm not going to have production. Plus, the water gets contaminated. Now I'm not, my organic garden is no longer organic. It's got all this waste in it. And then you're saying that they're going to build this pond when they're all done, and it's going to be this beautiful, and we'll have lakeshore property. If any of you ever go up north to the mines up there, they're a big pit with water in it. Wildlife do not congregate there. They don't have the weeds and everything. They're going to dig up all this sand soil that we have that it's hard to grow in anyway. So it's going to take years and years for leaves and whatever to compost back on there to get back to getting weeds and grass and stuff so that we get our wildlife back. They're going to be working around where our ponds are, where the deer and the coyotes and the wolves and the turtles migrate. It just impacts everything there. It's just, it just makes me upset. I mean, Knife River is down the road. There's no houses really by them. When they first proposed this, I'm like, Knife River is a nice thing. The more I read about this company, how when they do have a violation, it takes them years to fix it. Well, by then my water's contaminated. I'm just glad my boys are going to be out of the house soon so that they are not going to be drinking this poisonous water and, maybe impact how their children are born and different things. It scares the heck out of me for people with young kids that, are going to be exposed to this. You're not going to be sleeping at night. You got noise, you got light. It's just not natural for people to live that way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, good evening. My name's Randy Lynn. I'm from Haven Township. 1772 47th Street Southeast. And, you know, I wanted to follow up with this. Obviously, there's a lot of people here tonight. It's probably one of your most packed planning meetings you've had. And we did have the opportunity to do the public review on this. It was difficult. It was 300 and some pages worth of documents, and the timing of between Christmas and Thanksgiving, we were able to get through it, and a lot of the people here were able to get through it. And I'll try to keep within my 3 minutes, but from that information, we had a number of responses from these people to the tune of 210 pages from people that put together their information. And I'm wondering, by a show of hands, can any of you tell me if you were able to get through all those documents?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So there's a lot of good information in there, and we encourage you to do it. This seems to be going very fast. It's proceeding very fast, and I think we need to take a time and put like a little bit of a brakes on here. I wanted to address some of these things here. I'm glad that we're talking about land use. That is a big concern that's come up. If you look through the comments section, it is going to have a lot of effect on people's property values. And again, the water resources, that is, I think, appropriately given a grade of D. There is no other water source available to the houses around there. This is it. The county is well aware of the water problem there. The county attorney has sued the developer to stop this back in the day. And through a technicality on an evidentiary ruling, they didn't do it. The problem still exists, even though procedurally it didn't follow through. And along the lines, just to get some flavor around the company, the applicant, they had 9 water pollution violations in their repertoire for a total of $13,306,000 in fines. 1 minute remaining. Fish and Wildlife, 79 environmental violations for $197 million, and these are all talking about, we can get that information, but what I'd like to ask, these are all talking about ecology, environment effects. They're not talking about the cumulative effects of those that are surrounded by everything from air, noise, water, dust, and so looking to protect the health and safety of those that were there first. I guess I would like to have a health impact assessment statement done by the EPA. They have a program. I do have a handout available for those to see what this is all about, and I would encourage you to read it, that we need to look at the health and safety of the people around and not only just look at the fish, the wildlife, the air, and light noise pollution. And in that regard, I guess the cumulative effects for those living in the area really need to be concerned and slow the process down and add this to the scoping document. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak? Okay.
Good evening, I'm Kari Watkins, 4507 31st Avenue Southeast, St. Cloud, Minnesota. I live within a half a mile of the proposed Wholesome Sand and Gravel Mine. I'm also a newly elected Haven Township Supervisor. I have personal concern about this mine, and also as a representative of the people of Haven Township, I have great concern for them as well. The first concern I have is the timing of this process. The comment period was right in the middle of the holidays, November 26th through the December 26th, creating a loss of public trust towards this project. The EIS being completed and published in November 2025 and the adequacy decision made in December of 2025 seems rushed. This is a big project with many ramifications for those living in Haven Township. This process needs to be thoroughly and carefully carried out and not rushed. Second, while the EAW talked about most of the proposed mine being farm fields that wildlife does not inhabit, it is land that the wildlife uses. Turtles travel to and from the wetlands. Bald eagles use the field to hunt. In fact, in the proposed phase 1 of this project, I one time saw 8 eagles in that field at one time. Many deer travel through the fields. There are red foxes and owls, and among other wildlife. They do not live in the fields, but they utilize it for their survival. After a few months of road construction we experienced last fall, it disrupted the wildlife in the area. Third, with a history of Wholesome's violations, and EIS must carefully, thoroughly, completely make sure every mitigation is in place and every concern is addressed. And last, even after this study is finished, we will not really know how our lives will be affected living in such proximity to the proposed sand and gravel mine of this magnitude. I am not at all excited to find out, and neither are my many neighbors who took the time to be here and send their comments in, including 2 neighbors who couldn't be here because of illnesses. Also, as the EIS takes into account the land use, water resources, fish, wildlife, plants, and other items in the scoping decision document, I hope that it will be done carefully, thoroughly, and with due diligence. We ask that the time be given for the EIS process to be completed and not rushed. And I also wanted to mention, I did make comments, but they were not received by the township, or the, somehow my email didn't get there, so they weren't included in the packet. Thanks.
I believe I got comments from your husband, right?
Yep, yeah,
But you sent them in too?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know.
Thank you.
Hold on just a moment, Eric.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, so it's part of the record, not part of the motion, just let them know that.
Okay. Okay, please proceed.
I'd like to address specifically the EIS. The EIS is a good tool to use, but I'm a little concerned that maybe the scope is a little too narrow. So if you can look in your packet, or maybe the presenter can put us up on the 5.0 spots of the land use. And it's kind of talking about some potential impacts to nearby residents. I would like the EIS to be expanded to include the residential properties that maybe should be evaluated for purchase. Some of these are way too close to this mining operation to even be considered livable when they get into this large-scale operation. Also, the properties that will be impacted for noise mitigation. We've done some research and discovered there are places that have this much impact that the person or the company proposing the proposal needed to go in and mitigate with windows and doors and items on their homes so they weren't as impacted as well. We have neighborhoods that are right next to this property that's going to be under the EIS. Now, the plant operation, I have not really seen what the plant operation is going to look like yet. Maybe the board can answer that, where they're going to be centralized and going underneath County 65. Is that a 150-acre parcel is what I can tell from the documents. Is that true? Where they're going to be doing almost all of their evaluation or the operations?
Phase 1. It looked, from what I read, that most of their operations are going to occur once they've done phase 1, correct? In that phase 1 area?
Right, they're starting at phase 1. They're proposing to have a culvert or something where they can move material underneath County Road 65, but that would all have to be determined whether or not it would be allowed. You know, that's a proposal. We don't have anything yet as to, nothing's
Yep,
approved.
I understand, but it sounds like there's a central location for something.
Phase 1.
That's
For
phase
in-
1
in
where they're
phase one.
starting.
That sounds more like a industrial operation to me than what a typical, Knife River gravel pit would look like, because that's what we're used to up in Haven, is what Knife River's doing. I'd like to see us increase the testing of the wells. It says there's gonna be some version of monitoring. I wonder if there's actually a process the EIS can identify where you actually monitor and test the wells before, during, and what's going on, so we've got a baseline to follow, rather than just, oh, all of a sudden, this guy's well is contaminated, and where did it come from and how did it happen? And then I want to reiterate the short timing on this one. It kind of caught us by surprise over Thanksgiving and Christmas, but I think we got through it, so we understand this is the start of the process, and we welcome finding out everything. Right now, I don't know what I don't know. It's really difficult, so appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks. Should I make this for the record at
Yes,
this
please.
time? Okay. For the record, the Health Impact Assessment Resource and Tool Compilation, Appendix A, Health Impact Assessment Frequently Asked Questions has been handed out to all members of the board.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I believe that was provided by Mr. Lynn. Yes.
Randy Lynn.
It was provided by Randy Lynn.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sir.
Yeah, my name is Joe Sexton. I'm in Haven Township. My address is 6675 36th Avenue Southeast, St. Cloud. Lynn, I heard you say that you sent out letters to people within a half a mile.
Correct.
I think that's a great idea. You got some input. I don't know if a half a mile is enough. I mean, anybody within 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 miles are going to be drastically impacted by this. I think you would have got a lot more responses, but since this meeting was coming up, and I'm also on the Haven Township Board, and I've gotten numerous calls, and obviously none of them are positive about this happening. So they asked me to come and tell you that, so I am. The other thing is, it does, for me, it conflicts and limits Haven Township's ability to work with the city of St. Cloud on our annexation agreement. We're currently negotiating with them on annexation, and this proposal or this study, it limits our ability to negotiate with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
My name is Joe Then. I've been a resident of Haven Township since 1985, 40 years. I live at 1525 36th Street Southeast, just northwest of the area in question. This land use will impact the area for myself and my neighbors for decades, much longer than the anticipated or the projected 20-25 year life listed in the draft scoping decision document. I'm also an elected member of Haven Township Board of Supervisors, so my comments tonight are both personal and as a Haven supervisor. The project plan is to develop a new sand and gravel mine on 683-acre site in Haven Township. In section 3.5 of the decision document, it is stated the design and layout of the project is based on maximizing potential aggregate resources while avoiding impact to high-quality wetlands and other undisturbed native habitats. I think this is a good approach from a business and environmental perspective. In the St. Cloud and 3-county immediate area, there are several other gravel pits, all less than 683 acres, some less than 30 acres. Many of these smaller gravel pits have existed for 60 or more years, much longer than the 20 to 25 year expected life of this much larger proposed gravel pit. My concern is not further analyzing other modified designs or layouts in the environmental impact statement for this proposed gravel mine. I believe a much more prudent approach would be to approve a series of smaller gravel pit mines instead of a single larger 683-acre mine. A smaller gravel pit mine, for example, 10 acres of gravel extraction and 15 acres of facility for facility, equipment staging, and stockpiling of mined gravel. As the first gravel pit is exhausted, a second gravel pit would be approved for mining, provided there are no issues in the neighboring area with water quality, quantity, no issues with noise, air quality, and other to be defined criteria. A reclamation plan would also be approved for the recently mined area before granting a permit for the next mined area. This approach would allow for 1, the greatest agricultural use of the property throughout the life of the project, 2, identify issues that need to be mitigated before they become larger issues, and 3, minimize the impact to water quality and quantity of the neighboring areas. Water quality and quantity appear to be a major concern for neighboring property owners. The area of the proposed gravel mine consists of poor sandy soil, which makes it environmentally sensitive. Once a single large gravel mine is approved, environmental issues that would develop would be difficult to contain or correct. This modified design approach to the proposed gravel mine would not materially change the overall environmental effects, but would allow any environmental effects to be potentially be smaller in scope and more easily managed. Not changing overall environmental effects was stated to be one of the objectives in the draft scoping decision document. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lynn Ayers, and I operate a farm that's adjacent to this property that is going to be made into a sand and, or being proposed for the sand and gravel pit. I live at, or our property is at 3821 57th Street Southeast. Our family has run this farm since 1878, and during all those years, we've gotten environmental awards, and we've been good stewards of the land. This project is of grave concern to me and my partners and our neighbors about the impact that it's going to have on the environment. This isn't something that's going to last for 25 years. This is going to something that's going to last for the next 500,000 years. So my big concern is, you know, we're just a lay person, and we found out about the meeting on December 17th and tried to read through all the materials that we could as fast as we could. January 1st, I consulted with a friend of mine who was actually the vice president of Bar Engineering, one of the studies that was cited. And he looked at this and said, in his opinion, that the scope of it and the breadth of the proposed draft will define what they study going forward. And so if we're not careful and define that scope broad enough, then we've sort of limited what we can actually have in terms of impact on what is actually studied in the environmental statement. So my request is that we slow this process down, we table this, because yesterday was when I got the full packet, yesterday morning. And so people are working full time. You don't have time to listen to or read everybody's comments. And so for the people to really be able to have good feedback and to have this company, which has a bad reputation, have a good working relationship with this community that they're going to be embedded in for so many years, I think we need to slow this process down and give it more thought. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hi, I'm Robert Kolkman. I live at 4920 15th Avenue Southeast. They talk about going into the water table. And it's going to be a portion, most of the residents here, that there will be contaminants, and that if, there is when. Who's going to bear the brunt of drilling new wells, finding alternate water sources, getting the city to bring water to our development, and because without water, our houses are worth nothing. Who's going to bear the brunt of that cost? Is it going to be the county? Is it going to be us? Is it going to be this corporation? We really need to find out who's going to bear that, because you know, this is our investment. This is our life out here. Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jean Ayers. I am a partner in the Diamond A Farm that is just adjacent, that Lynn Ayers just spoke to. Fourth generation growing up there. Happy to be transferring our farm to our fifth generation. Very excited about that. So we're quite concerned about this project. That address is 3821 57th Street. So my request to you tonight is actually to look at this EIS scoping decision document and strengthen a number of the recommendations. Land use seems to be primary in many of our top of mind. I think that the land use considerations should also include the financial considerations. I just am not confident that the price of doing the regulatory monitoring and the oversight is incorporated, so I would want that to be outlined, and I'm not certain, does that go under land use? Does that go under cumulative potential effects? One of the categories, there should be a stronger analysis about that. The second thing is, I am really And I really appreciated your comments about why would we ever approve or consider something that's almost 700 acres when we don't have anything like that big anywhere. It seems like throwing the whole kitchen sink into something. So when I look at this, it's always called sand and gravel mining. And then somewhere in the middle of the sentence, it says, oh, and we're going to do concrete and asphalt recycling too. That seems like a second use. It doesn't seem like it's part of sand and gravel mining. So I searched everywhere I could about where's the permission for that. And it doesn't look like it falls into that IUP thing. It looks like it's actually some separate license, and that this company is just opening the door so that they can do whatever they want later on down the road. So I'm not sure if it helps to put that into the EIS, or if we should be really clear at the front end that we're not considering concrete and asphalt recycling. Because one thing is taking clean stuff out and driving it down the road and bringing empty trucks in. The second thing is you're bringing full trucks in of stuff that you don't know where it came from. And now we're introducing hazardous waste. So then if that's going to stay there, sorry, I don't have a lot of oxygen. If that is going to stay there, we need to upgrade the hazardous waste piece of this too, not from an A to a D or something. I don't understand how that isn't related. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Bridget Ayers-Luby. I'm also a partner in the farm at 3821 57th Street Southeast. I also own a property at 5320 60th Street. I just have a couple of comments. I mean, I want to emphasize that I agree with everything that's been said tonight in opposition, and just bringing light to all the concerns that we all have on all of these issues. In addition to those things, I just want to note that I know this is allowable in how this parcel is zoned right now as an interim use, and I just want to emphasize that this is not interim. This is a permanent alteration of this piece of land. Millennia of soil, the soil horizons will be destroyed. That takes millennia, that's forever. So that's one thing. Second thing is, it's not clear to me how all of the policing and monitoring that everyone's been mentioning, how is that funded? Because maybe it's mentioned, but it seems like the sand and gravel tax is primarily for maintenance of roads, but there's going to be a lot of policing that will need to happen as part of this. And then finally, if all it takes is somebody in this meeting mentioning the grades associated with these and this list here, I recommend that we move all of these grades to a D, because climate adaptation and resilience, you remove all of the cover that immediately impacts the climate. Cover types that's associated with that, those are huge. Land use, that's completely different, that seems like a D. Geology, soil, that's completely different, that also seems like a D. Contamination, hazardous materials and waste, number 13, that's obviously number 1 on what this operation is going to do, so that feels like it needs to move to a D as well. Greenhouse gas, the carbon footprint of those 400 truckloads, semi-truckloads a day, how is that equated, and how many miles are they driving? That has an impact. And then obviously number 21, cumulative potential effects, that seems like Z, that's everything. So I recommend that we look at all of these grades, and I think they're all important. So move them all down to D. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is William Seeberger. I live at 1966 47th Street Southeast, Haven Township. I don't know if the members of the board live as close to this thing as I do, and I don't know if the members of the board realize that this is property I've been paying taxes on for many years, supporting your jobs, and all these other people are taxpayers also. But I do feel that we're not getting actually heard. I think this is sort of being shoved through on us. The young lady in the red back there, she was very quick to point out different things, and that's fine. But it should be open to all of us to be able to say how this feels, and this is what this meeting's about. But a half mile, why not a mile? Why not all the way to the end of County Road 8, because those trucks are going to be running on that? How about Highway 10? This is an effect that's going to spread like wildfire. Many of us have limited water now, and we know that when you start taking glasses of water out of a gallon jug, pretty soon that gallon jug is not a gallon. And you can flour it any way you want, but I truly do believe that the people here paying the taxes, supporting the community and stuff, should have a better input into this. And this company has been sued everywhere. Everywhere they go, they get sued. And now they said that they're trying to divest any of the companies in the United States associated with Holcomb. I wonder why.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mary Dank. My husband Jim and I live right on County Road 65. We were late to the story. We bought our property many years ago, about 20 years ago, and we stopped our building immediately when we heard from the first story that this was going to turn into an aggregate business. 8 years ago or 9 years ago, we built, and we love the area. We love the neighborhood. We love the quiet, and we really like the dark night sky. Well, that will disappear. And I listened to all of you talk tonight, and I think you had so many good ideas. I'm just checking off. Yes, we wrote that. Yes, we wrote that. As we spent a long time writing our letter of complaints or concerns. But tonight I missed hearing one, and I'm really tied to this one because it affects my grandchild. So we were watching the school bus arrive yesterday, and Isla stepped off, got off, walked in front of that bus, and she stood there. There were no cars. She stood there watching, making sure it was safe. And all I could think of was, we could have up to 18 trucks an hour rumbling down this road. And Isla's not the only one who crosses the road. All of us do. And we will no longer, our beautiful new road with the paved sideways, we are so excited. Well, our bikers will disappear. Our walkers will disappear. It is a busy, busy road with that much truck traffic. So I could address all sorts of these, but that's the one I wanted to make sure. It is not going to be the same safe road. And we also really like sitting out on our front porch, happy hour out on the front porch. But a whole lot of things changed as we watched the road construction last year. And I know there were quite a few days that had air quality warnings. And I'm one of those that had to wear the mask all the time because I'm going through cancer. So I know that if this mining starts, those of us who face difficult issues with breathing, and I'm not the only one in this room that's in that situation, those of us who really treasure the quiet moments for our own peace of mind and joy of life, all of that starts to be impacted. So just thanking all of you who spoke and brought up all those really important topics. I just wanted to add my own little personal that it is going to hurt to have any of this be developed in our community. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Are there any other comments? Anyone wishing to speak on this issue?
Evening. My name's Tom Schmidt. I am the general manager at Wholesome, address 2815 Dodd Road, Eagan, Minnesota. I'll let Kirsten introduce herself.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the Planning Commission and public. My name is Kirsten Pauley. I am a geologist and civil engineer with Sunday Engineering and have been working with Wholesome on preparing the environmental scoping EAW and working with the county on the scoping decision document. So do you want to say a few words or do you want me to make a few comments about some of the things we've heard? So I guess I'd like to take this opportunity to make a few comments regarding some of the comments that we've heard and to also, of course, we're here to answer any questions that you have. But I just want to remind everyone that this scoping decision document and this scoping process is the first step in looking at the proposed project. So while it is useful to hear people's concerns, the whole idea of the scoping decision document is to establish that those items that are potentially significant are studied. And the scoping process, I know it feels like it's fast. It's a 30-day comment period that's prescribed by state rules that regulate environmental review. So, the process, is intended to be very thorough, and the timelines that are established by the rules are what they are. The proposed timeline for the entire EIS study that was presented tonight, that's tentative. Oftentimes, as these studies are undertaken, they take a tremendous amount of time and effort, and so that's a tentative schedule, and there's opportunity during that process for additional public comment and review. But I also want to point out that this scoping EAW and the draft scoping decision document was provided, not just available for public comment, but by law, it's also distributed to a number of government agencies. So the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency reviewed this document. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service reviewed this document, soil and water conservation districts, the tribal communities. There are a number of government agencies that review these documents as a routine matter, and they're the ones who have expertise in some of the areas of permitting. So this, a site like this is subject to an interim use permit from the county, the township. There's the land use controls, but there's also many, many other permits that are required for a mining operation. For example, the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency regulates air emissions, and there's an air permit that's required. And the Department of Natural Resources regulates the water and the water appropriations permits. There are permits required for wetlands and potential wetland impacts, whether they're direct or indirect. So all of these agencies are reviewing this scoping decision document and comparing it to other projects, similar projects that they've worked on, and also had the opportunity to submit comments. So those agencies, Minnesota Pollution Control Agency had no comments on the actual scoping decision document and those grades that were assigned. So One of the purposes of a scoping process is to eliminate bulk from the document and focus on those things that are important. We heard a lot about two particular items. One was the land use, and the concern was,
Do we all get 3 minutes, or?
Yeah.
3 minutes. As the proposer or representing the proposer, I would ask the board if we would be allowed to actually respond to the many comments that we heard and to provide a little bit of additional information for the board to consider.
I think we all feel our comments are justified, and I had quite a ways to go as well. So I guess I would recommend that we keep it to 3 minutes.
They are the project proposer, but the item before the board is whether or not the document is adequate, and if we need to adjust anything on it.
So what's the response for the time limit?
So I think we keep it at 3 minutes for everyone.
3 minutes for everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Is anyone else here to speak on this issue?
Hello, my name is Tim Luby, and I am also associated with Diamond A Farm, 3821 57th Street, Southeast St. Cloud. And, you know, I, at the risk of just repeating what's already been said, I think that the most critical thing was this is a huge project, and because even though it might be in the rules that it's only 30 days allowed for, you know, the public comment period and people to submit their letters and their feedback, the fact that it was conveniently timed right over the Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays, you know, that's when it happened to be. Okay, you know, I can read those rules too, I get it. But the fact is, this is an enormous project, and it requires some careful consideration of the scope. Now, I'm no hydrologist, I'm no engineer, I'm no geologist, but I think anyone with, you know, half a grain of common sense could say, if you have foreign material brought in the form of concrete and particularly asphalt for recycling, there's no way that hazardous waste can be considered an A. I'm sorry, that can't be. Now, I don't know, I don't have enough expertise to say, does that make it a B, C, or D? But particularly asphalt, you start bringing it in from the outside, and as someone mentioned, who knows where it's been? Who knows where that came from? How much is being brought in? I don't think it says, it just says we want to recycle asphalt and concrete. You don't know where that's coming from, and it doesn't say how much is brought in. But that's a pretty big issue. I think that has to be considered a D. One gentleman from the Haven Township Board had a great idea. Why does this have to be all done at once where, and I realize it's in like 5 phases, but if it was done in little bits and pieces, it'd be a lot easier to monitor. So it's going awfully fast, and I think in order to make the right decision, you want to make sure you have all the information that you need, and that means making sure there's time for this all to come out. So I really appreciate your attention. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to speak on this issue? Is there anyone else to speak on this issue? Is there anyone else to speak on this issue?
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So, Mr. Chair, zoning staff is requesting that the planning commission review the document that was provided to you and that you provide a recommendation of acceptance or make changes to the final scoping decision document that would get forwarded to the county board for approval.
Are there any suggested changes to the scoping document?
Well, Mr. Chair, I said it before, that 13 needs to be a D, contamination. We need to look into that further.
I agree.
As well as I.
And if we weren't gonna look at it, it should say something like good stuff instead of contamination.
And so is that because of the asphalt and
Well,
recycling and the heavily metals?
I just don't see where we can skim over something that says contamination and hazardous material and waste.
Okay.
Is there a motion to that effect?
Make a motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That's for that one item.
Just for the one, okay, great.
We go one item at a time.
Item 13 will be changed to a D.
Also, this health impact statement, that needs to be included. Make that motion.
Do you think of that under land use?
I don't care.
Where would that fall, Lynn?
I think the cumulative potential impacts may be a good spot for that.
I think that should be a D also. This is a huge, huge project. 25 years at minimum. I think we need to put a long
I
range.
think we need to make all of them a D. Myself.
Is that a motion?
I'll make a motion for 21 to become.
I'll second that motion.
For board members to be making recommendations as to any new delineations, articulate the basis for why we believe those recommendations should be made. My apologies. I'll speak up. For any member who is moving a recommendation for a new delineation, please articulate the basis for why you think that the county board should consider that different designation.
Did you get my reason now?
Perhaps you could restate it.
I believe 21 should be a D also because of the long range effects, and we don't know what the potential could be. With all the potential hazards that are there, and the long range, it's huge. Somebody said it's forever.
Well, and I think that if we're including that health impact statement into 21, that in itself justifies going to a D.
Can you also take a look at most, now that we've switched a few of those over, most of the items are running close to a D, so that would be the cumulative effect of all of it.
On the average.
Yeah.
I would agree.
So I made a motion, seconded. Is that enough information for you? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, so is it for a vote?
Pardon me?
This, we're going to cumulative potential effect is what you made the motion, I seconded.
Oh,
And then we justified it, so now it's to you.
okay, so we need a vote on item, for the health impact statement, item 21. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so what are the wishes of the board?
Wait a minute, is land use at a D?
Currently, land use is at a C.
Okay, so I would make a motion that land use go to D. Many of the people tonight talked about how the land is being used, what type of animals are out there, real estate valuation. Let me see if I go through here. Property values again, geology, full examination of all aspects of land use. So quite a few of the people tonight addressed the fact that they were very concerned about land use. So I'd like to move that to a D as well. I'll make a motion to that.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second for upgrading item 10, land use, to a D. All in favor?
Aye.
So, as far as the water resources, if we start looking at monitoring wells, is there a requirement that there is a baseline established to begin with?
My guess would be that the board could make a recommendation that that be something that be looked at and addressed
It-
throughout this process. I don't know whether or not that
All
can
right.
be made a condition.
There has
but
to
we
be a
can certainly
baseline.
look at it.
There has to be a baseline. We don't know what we're starting with unless we have a baseline. So I would highly recommend that in the water resources. That'd be part of the monitoring.
And that's commented from St. Cloud's comments that there's over 200 wells downstream from that. There has to be some, again, there has to be some type of
Do we
starting
need-
point, right?
And this is addressed to you, do we need to, so if we make that recommendation, do we need to make a statement such as within 2.5 miles of the perimeter, blah, blah, blah? Do we need to do that?
I think that you should articulate as specifically as you can what the parameters are and why it is that you are recommending that to the county board. So for example, for the water resources, first of all, how that relates to this document, the scoping document, and why it is you're making that recommendation to the board.
Okay, so how about?
I have a question now. Doesn't the technical evaluation panel look at upstream conditions and downstream?
The technical evaluation panel is specifically for wetlands and wetland impacts.
That's it,
Yep. They only deal with wetlands and wetland proposed impacts.
Understood. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have a comment to make. As a member of the Livonia Board, when the landfill, the Elk River landfill, some of you may know where it's at, expanded in our township, we asked before they expand that they test wells and get a baseline. And in that particular area, the water flows underground. It flows from the northeast to the southwest towards the river.
Yep.
And so most of the testing is done on the west side of the landfill, but we test them. They've got about 30 wells throughout the area there, and I think that's very, I think that applies to the same with the water table and with the water quantity. And the testing is so good there, getting a little off subject, but they could even tell when it's a bad snow year, because 6 months later, there's more trace of salt in the groundwater. So it is some very good testing, and I think that should be implemented here.
Is that enough?
So that cleared about what the board is asking for. They're asking for they are recommending a well monitoring that is a baseline to review as far as the scope of what the EIS should be looking at within that category. Is that correct?
And that would be quality and quantity, correct? Is that what you're looking for? Quality and quantity?
Yeah, quality and volume, I guess.
Quantity, volume.
But to be clear, as it relates to this scoping decision document?
Correct.
Could I ask the lady from Sunday Engineering? Now, in your EIS preparations, do you do groundwater monitoring or hydrogeological assessments?
Yes, if you look on the scoping decision document under water resources, there's a list of 5 specifics that are talked about, and so it's talking about developing a groundwater monitoring plan, and of course, part of the water resources is doing a hydrogeologic investigation.
You do,
And
okay.
what I would suggest is just adding number 6 that says that there will be baseline water quality and quantity monitoring performed as part of the EIS study. So that's the whole intent of doing the studies is to, so you put some wells down and you find out what the baseline is. So articulating that as a number 6 as a category is appropriate.
So I noticed that on table 4-1, first one is number 7. Are we missing 1 through 6?
Yeah, I'm wondering about that.
It's things like the project proposer, the name of the project proposer. It's items like the list of permits, which are a requirement of an EIS anyway. So those numbers just relate to the topics that are in the EAW, and that would be something that you would carry forward as a study. You don't study the like the list of permits that are required is.
Housekeeping type stuff.
Yeah, exactly, and some of them are required to be in there regardless, so it doesn't need an actual categorization.
Thank you.
And Lynn has 1 through 6.
Yep, it's at the beginning of the EAW.
So when you state item 6, hydrogeological analysis is,
So in this scoping decision document, there's that table that kind of summarizes things. But if you look at the topics, if you keep, go forward instead of, forward, go to section 5. Okay, so 5.2 water resources. So this is where it's specifically saying what the EIS studies will do, right? Evaluate the potential effects of the proposed water appropriation for the wash plant operations, taking into consideration the replacement of irrigation appropriations over time. Will include a well survey of residential water supply wells and irrigation wells located within the vicinity of the site. So this is specifically saying the things that are going to be studied. And if you want to make sure that baseline is considered, I would say recommend adding item number 6 that says baseline water quality and quantity will be collected as part of the hydrogeologic investigation. And then it's actually memorialized in the scoping decision document, which is the blueprint for conducting the studies.
Fair enough.
fair enough, yeah. We have a motion to approve item number 6 under water resources for establishment of a
I'll
baseline
make a motion
study.
for that.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any other recommendations to the county board?
I have a question for Lynn and perhaps Will. Is it possible to keep the comment period open?
That I believe.
As
and
we
I can
move
refer to the
forward.
attorney, but I think the comment period ended per the rules December 26th. People can still provide comments to their county board or to their township board, but the actual comment period that's required in the rules closed December 26th. But I would defer to the attorney.
No, that's accurate, and obviously, the comments that are and have been presented today, as were indicated, will be provided to the county board as they're making the ultimate decision on whether or not to accept the scoping decision document, whether that's with or without the recommendations that the board has made today. But yes, I would concur with the zoning administrator on that.
Can I ask just for clarity, for quite a few people ask this same question. Who set up Thanksgiving through Christmas?
It's the way that the dates fell. The project proposer got their stuff in. Once stuff is considered complete, we have to publish. I didn't like the dates either,
I didn't like
honestly.
it at all.
When we have to have a public meeting we have to hold at least, I believe it's 15 days after the public notice goes out for the comment period. We pushed that back to day 15 because we didn't want to be any closer to Christmas. We know people are busy that time of year. We want to make sure we get comments. The way that the rules are written is we only had to publish a notice in the paper. We did not have to mail anything to anyone. Our ordinance for an interim use permit requires a 1/4 mile We moved this to half a mile because we were trying to make sure that we get comments. We want public participation, and we want this to be an open process. So zoning staff is trying to make this an open process. We're trying to make sure that we get comments from people, and we were thankful we received the 62 comments that we did get.
Do you want to mention too the two different meetings that occurred as well? Maybe reiterate that, the St. Cloud meeting and then the Becker meeting.
The project proposer had a meeting up in St. Cloud where they sent out notices. The county was not involved in that. I did go to that meeting because I wanted to see what was being presented, because I wanted to make sure that it was stated at that meeting that that was not the public meeting that we needed to get comments at. And so they did a nice job of making sure that they made those comments at that meeting. But we held that meeting, we had that meeting in Becker, and after this meeting, it'll go to the county board. I believe it's February 4th. It's a Tuesday morning.
With that, any further discussion by the board? Zoning staff is requesting the planning commission to provide their recommendation of acceptance of the final scope of decision document to the county board for approval, yeah.
Can we have this read back to us?
Pardon me?
Can you read, Gary, can you read back to us exactly where we're at with each one of these? Recorded? No?
I think I can take a stab at it.
Because I have mine written down too, so.
Okay, so land use would be changed. It's item number 10 from a C to a D.
Correct.
Number 13, contamination, hazardous materials and waste would go from an A to a D. There was concern about the asphalt recycling and concrete recycling that's being proposed. The section on air, we already previously had changed those recommendations based on the comments we received. Cumulative potential effects would go from a C to a D and include a health impact assessment statement. And there was also discussion of having baseline testing and monitoring of wells that would be discussed. In addition to that, we had that section 5.2 under water resources, adding number 6, baseline water quality and quantity study. And that's what I have written down. I hope I didn't miss anything, but correct me if I did, please.
No, I'm a note taker, so.
That's what you had?
Yeah, that's what I had, so.
Chair, do we have to look at greenhouse gas and carbon footprint with potential from 150 to 400 trucks a day in that area? Is that something that should be considered? To be changed, upgraded from a A?
Good point.
I mean,
That's a lot of
going
vehicles.
Going from
I don't think
school bus to 200 trucks is a big difference.
they won't be electric, will they?
I mean, what's the rest of the board feel?
I think it's a great idea.
I'm gonna read the 5.6, talks about air.
Say it again?
How do you,
5.6, they do talk about air in here.
how do you quantify that?
Federal ambient air quality, mine safety, health administration, air quality rules. Yeah, they talked about,
That's
more
more
talking about
mine
silica.
operations.
Silica, yeah.
So are you thinking his comment is more under air?
That's my thinking.
This is all about the dust control though.
Yeah, it's not about the,
Yep.
not about exhaust. I don't think there's anything in there about, correct?
Under transportation, it just talks about traffic study.
Didn't talk about carbon. Where do you want to bring it to?
Appreciate your comments.
Thank you. I just as a point of clarification, the greenhouse gas analysis was provided in the EAW, and based on the information that was presented, the Minnesota Environmental Quality Board has recently added a greenhouse gas analysis component to environmental assessment worksheets. And so that inventory was completed, it was presented in the scoping EAW document, it was reviewed by the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, and they had no comments on it. And so the analysis has been done, and it's in the EAW. And so the criteria that you are to be looking at to determine whether it should be an A, a B, a C, or a D is whether or not there's a potential significant effect as defined by Minnesota rules. And the consulting engineer that the county hired to review all of the information in the scoping EAW and the scoping decision document determined that the information that was presented in the EAW was adequate to make a decision regarding the greenhouse gas effects, and was in an agreement that it would be an A category. So if you choose to change it, then what you would want the proposer to do above and beyond the information that is presented in the EAW, if you wanted in the EIS, using basically the same information that was presented in the EAW, you could change it from an A to a B. That means it's important enough that you would like to revisit the discussion in the environmental review document in the EIS. But I guess that would be, my input on that, just because it's something that is ranked as an A or a B doesn't mean it hasn't already been evaluated. That was part of the scoping process and part of the scoping EAW. And then things like air, the air section is a D, and so that is where you're going to be talking about things like fugitive dust and ambient air quality standards and the air permit and what is expected there. Then transportation deals with vehicle emissions as well, and that's already covered under a D. So greenhouse gas emissions are a separate calculation, separate study. It was part of the EAW. It was considered by the consulting engineer for the county to be complete, and it's up to you to make your decision on that.
Well, you could be wrong, though, correct? I mean, everybody's got an opinion, correct?
Everybody's got an
And
opinion, correct. So
I think the people here, the people that we're listening to here, I would say if I'd ask them to raise their hands, probably three of them wouldn't raise their hand, but they all would agree that that is more important than a A on their
right. So then, and that's fine. So if you feel that it is important enough to be included in the EAW, then or in the EIS, then you should change it and consider what more than what was presented in the EAW do you want? Do you want basically just an update of that inventory, or what more do you want? Because you will need to provide guidance instead of just going from A to D. You'll have to give the proposer some guidance as to what specifically you want, because we don't understand that at this point.
But moving it then from, and I'm going to address you. So moving it then from an A to a C, it's a significant topic, scoping EAW data adequate with updates for use in a draft EIS is where we'd be at, basically talking about. So moving it from an A to a C.
Based on the representative from Sunday's comment about moving it from an A to a C, and then articulating, if I understand correctly, what additional information do you want updated or do you think is lacking that then warrants that going from an A to a C?
Yeah, and I think going to C is fine because it basically says the county perceives that this is a potentially significant issue. The information was in the EAW and it should be updated as necessary in the EIS. So C is fine. If you go to D, if you would go to D and need additional parameters to study is when, we would need to know exactly what it is, what additional information you would want.
Right. And then based on that, when we review the final EIS, that's the draft of that, and everybody's got a critical eye on it, if you're not satisfied and residents aren't satisfied, we could make additional comments during the next comment period that we don't feel this was adequately being addressed.
Okay, I'll make that recommendation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Based on your recommendation, by golly. So carbon footprint from A to C is my motion. I need a second.
And
So that
what was the
is-
justification?
He just gave it to us.
That is
So that is specifically as to item 18, greenhouse gas and carbon footprint. And that is based on comments from
Yes,
hydrogeologists.
related, yep, correct.
Hydrogeologists concerning potential updates that can be had over and above whether.
Yeah, and a C would be scoping EAW data adequate with updates for use in the draft E EIS.
We have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Hess. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
How are we prepared to move on the zoning staff request?
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I would make a motion to move the recommendations presented onto the county board for consideration.
I'll second. Oh,
I'm sorry, may I clarify the
Sure.
motion? So recommending approval to the board of the scoping decision document with the changes that have been discussed and approved. Is that correct?
Correct.
That's exactly what I meant.
that's exactly what I seconded.
18 goes to a C, okay. Is there, we got a second?
Yep.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, Mr. Commissioner.
I've sat here quietly the whole time. And I don't have a vote on this board, but I just wanted to thank the staff and Holcomb and all of the residents that were here tonight, because this is not taken lightly by myself. I'm not sure how the other commissioners look at this, but I did read all 210 pages of your comments. Because to me, it's very important. I think they've done a diligent job here of going through it. As far as I'm concerned, my phone, and I think I spoke to quite a few of you, has blown up in the last few weeks. But I just want to commend everybody for what they've done. And, you know, this is not taken lightly. It's a long process, and we're in the infancy of that process. And I just want everyone to know that. So you can keep making comments and go forward, but this board's going to have the recommendation to the board, but I suggest that you all call. I think it's been mentioned here before. I'm one of 5 commissioners. You can twist my ear and do everything you want, but there's 4 other commissioners that have to be addressed and talked to. So I suggest that not my only phone that is blown up or my email. And with that, I'll let this commission recommend to the county board what they want to do.
Okay, then, did we have a vote?
Yeah, let's do it again.
All right, all those,
Just a reminder, it's February 4th at 9 a.m., correct?
correct.
that's correct.
February 4th, 9 a.m. Is it here?
Correct.
Here you go.
Mr.
Keep your chair warm.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, just to clarify, so the most recent vote for approval was to move item 18 to a C. Is that correct?
18, isn't it?
18.
Correct. All right. And now the board will be possibly entertaining the motion that we had discussed a moment ago.
Correct.
We had a motion and a second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, again, as previously stated, this issue will go to the county board on the 4th of February, so. And I
There will
think,
be no public comment at that time.
No,
No.
no. There will be no comment.
Gary, do bodies matter?
Sure. I love having a full board room.
Yeah.
But it's still a matter of what this board recommends. And like I've said, talk to your other commissioners. I'm one of 5.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to thank the audience for being civil and knowledgeable, and it was enjoyable to listen to your comments tonight. unlike some of the ones we've had.
And I'll be around for a few minutes if anybody wants to stay and talk. I'm gladly do that.
Anything else? For the good of the cause.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.
Well, does it just have to be?